So let me ask you guys a question. Why are we interested in healing? Why are we talking about it? Why are we exploring our pasts and our backgrounds and going through all of the pain and the continued hurt, exploring the past and how we might have been raised or past relationships that we went through, and evaluating what went wrong and trying to understand who did what and who played what role and how we responded and how we were affected? Why are we doing all that? Why are we going through all that? Why are we seeking healing? That's what I want to start this video out with. And I want you to take the time, pause the video right now if you need to, and ask yourself that very question and spend some time thinking about it. Please don't continue watching this video if you're not able to answer for yourself. Why are you watching this video? Why have you tuned into my channel? Why do you want healing and wellness for yourself? What are you looking for? What are you seeking? What do you hope to find? What do you hope to get out of this process, this very painful process that healing requires? I will say, for me, what brought me to the point where I began the process of healing, which I didn't even know I was getting into when it started, was me just wondering why I was still hurting and frustrated and angry over this work experience I had. I talk about this a lot in my content. I have done a lot of videos on that experience, and as I've come to realize and come to learn, was the triggering experience that got me on the path to wellness. And what I had done is, about a year after I had left that workplace, thinking that by leaving the situation I would be doing much better. And although I did find a tremendous deal of peace after leaving that work situation and not being in the middle of this chaotic mess of antagonism and constant stress and frustration, I found peace in that way as far as getting out of that. But I still found myself a year after being gone from there, still hurt, still angry, still bitter, still really, really struggling to have relationships with some of the people that I had developed friendships with from that workplace, and some people that I was on kind of neutral terms or acquaintance type terms with. And I wound up feeling like, and did, severing ties with everybody that I worked with, no matter what level of relationship I was at with them, and risking that they would misunderstand my perspective and why that relationship was severed, because to me it wasn't worth it. It was so hurtful to continue in any capacity with anyone associated with that company that it was worth the risk to me to sever ties with everyone associated with that company, because I had to get away, far, far away from everyone that was associated with that company that thought they were just the bomb, and still do think that that company is the bomb. So, and that's a decision I made for me. But as I started to say, I was gone from there for a year when I finally got to the point where I was really frustrated over the fact that I could not make sense of, and I did not understand why I was still carrying hurt and bitterness and anger over something that was in the past. Why was it still bothering me so much? And that's when I just happened to ask someone who was a therapist, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And that's when I started therapy, because he was like, let's get together. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. And then it turned into this whole huge can of worms, as I refer to it, when I started therapy. And unbeknownst to me, without any sort of plan of attack or goal to get well or anything like that, unbeknownst to me, there was this process that I underwent in therapy of just desperately seeking answers, desperately seeking understanding. And as the can of worms exploded, I got to this place where it was just a lot of shock and awe and more hurt and processing. And it was probably a good year of just painful stuff, exploring and trying to make sense of and understand the painful stuff from the past and what I had experienced and been through before I really got to the point where I was realizing that the goal was healing. The goal that I was going through all this stuff, these difficult feelings and a lot of painful processing of past experiences and emotions I was still carrying from 20 years ago or 30 years ago from my childhood that I had never worked through and never processed because I didn't have an awareness that I was even unhealthy at that time when I started therapy, or even 6 months in. It wasn't until I first unloaded the fact that my family of origin and my parents were both very unhealthy that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm unhealthy too. And that explained to me why I had gotten to this point in my life with that toxic job. Well, after having left a year before, where I was still bothered and plagued by this hurt and anger towards everybody that I worked with there, and why I couldn't shake that, why I couldn't get rid of it. It was just this heaviness and this, it was almost like just carrying around a taser and tasing myself every so often. It was like painful, and I was doing it to myself and I didn't need to. And so healing for me, and I'm just going to answer this for myself, and it may correlate to you, it may not, but healing for me was me desperately seeking peace of mind and understanding, because what I went through on that toxic job made no sense to me. No sense whatsoever. I left there and still had no answers or understanding of everything that I went through. I was so confused as to what had happened, what everybody's role was, because it was such a mangled, tangled mess of just like dreadlocks and snarls and just chaos. And then when I left, it never got any better. I still didn't have any answers. I still didn't have an understanding. And I'm a firm believer that there's a reason for everything. And that's just me. That might not be your perspective. That's just how I think. I kind of have, over the course of my life, seen the bigger picture in my life in a lot of different ways. I've gotten clarification in so many different aspects of my life because of something that happened I originally didn't understand and then got clarification on because I sought understanding or mulled over the problem or asked questions or investigated a little bit more or talked to the person. So again, for me, seeking healing was actually never the goal. I was seeking peace of mind. When I first went to therapy, the whole reason I was open to it in the first place was because I could not handle what was going on up here in my head and in my heart, inside my soul anymore. I just couldn't sort anything out in my head, and I was carrying around so much frustration about everything that I couldn't get clarity in my own personal life. I just felt like I was running on fumes, like I was a pinball in a pinball game, going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and being very reactive and being like not thinking things through and not really understanding why I was acting the way I was acting and why I was reacting and why something might bother me. Something could happen and I wouldn't even understand my own reaction to it. It was just very stressful. It was too much for me to handle, and I almost had a breakdown when I left that job. And then a year later, it still hadn't gotten any better for me. I had gotten out of the situation, so it was better in that manner, like I said. But I still wasn't feeling better inside. I didn't have peace, and I didn't have joy, and I didn't feel like I was in a place with any of my relationships in my life where I felt like I could rely on somebody and they would be able to rely on me in return. People generally can rely on me come hell or high water. That's just who I am. But I didn't feel like I had any relationships other than my husband and my kids in my life where I could really have a reciprocal arrangement with them, where I could give and could receive and felt like I was being built up or encouraged or supported. And that's really where I was at. And so my journey to healing has not been a goal that I have ever had. I just needed peace. I needed love and joy in my life, and I needed good friendships, and I needed healthy relationships, and I needed a good job where I didn't feel like I was being screwed over. And I just needed to get to a place in my life, even though my marriage and my children, were the focal point of, me wanting to get well. I needed to get myself to a place where I was feeling good, where I was at least waking up most days with a feeling of peace and joy in my heart. And I wasn't feeling that when I sought therapy. That's what I was looking for. And so when we start talking about healing and what is the point of healing and why we're doing it, I think we really need to start there and figure out what it is that our end goal is, because I think that it would save us a lot of trouble. And journaling is one way of doing it. Doing videos is another way of doing it. It's kind of like a video diary. If you video yourself and then look back on your videos, like, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, or whatever. If you don't have time to actually journal it, I do a lot of my good thinking when I'm commuting on my way back and forth to work. As you know, in my car, I've done some videos. And then also when I'm outside taking walks or riding my bike. That's when I do a lot of my best thinking. So with that said, I want to encourage you to explore a little bit of that question, why? Why are we wanting to get better? Why are we even trying to heal? Why are we walking down that painful path? If it's going to be painful, what's the end result? What do we hope to see at the end of that path? I think for most of us, that's a good starting point, is just to explore what we're looking for. Why do we even want to consider healing? What are we looking for? What do we hope to see at the end of that road? I think, at least for me, it is a question that helped me to stay focused. Every time I found myself derailed by speed bumps or setbacks throughout my healing, and even now, as I continue to walk that path of healing, I keep going back to that question. What am I doing? What's the point? What's the goal? Why am I doing this? Because I think asking that question and keeping that at the forefront of our brains every day helps us stay focused when we hit speed bumps and we get derailed, because we do, I think, get into a comfort zone and let our guards down. As we get better and get healthier, we tend to forget the things that we're supposed to keep in mind as we're walking this path of healing, and we let our guard down and we take it for granted that we've learned A, B, and C, and we forgot about D, E, and F, the lessons that we've learned about healthy boundaries and paying attention to red flags and not emotionally reacting or absorbing others' bad juju and owning their problems. In the next video, I'm going to explore a topic that's very related to this, why am I wanting to heal in the first place? And in the meantime, spend some time thinking about your situation and why you're on this path to healing, and answering those questions for yourself about why you're even going down this path. Because I think it's very important for each person to identify for themselves what the end goal is. Please stay tuned for the next video. I will be uploading soon. But in the meantime, as always, take care of you.